Hi, these comments are for RB. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com. I'm going to give you feedback on two different TOEFL speaking practice tests. Okay, so I have the integrated speaking rubrics here. I'm ready to listen to the first one.
This lecture talks about environmental conditions that help preserve archaeological artifacts. To
Okay.
begin with, aridity is a key factor. Bacteria that cause decay depends heavily on water, so they cannot grow well in a dry climate. For example,
Instead of they, you could say they because bacteria is plural, so your pronoun agreement is good. But how about saying these organisms or something? And then that more specifically refers back to what you're saying, and it shows you have some good
in a
vocabulary.
desert, scientists have found many
In a desert,
wall paintings from thousands of years ago that are as colorful as it used to be.
okay?
Next, the professor introduces another environmental factor about oxygen.
Yeah, good. I like how you're using the word another, so the connection of your ideas are very clear. So you're basically giving two different examples or explaining two examples to illustrate a concept that the professor is talking about.
Basically, bacteria cannot grow without oxygen. So, in the bottom of the ocean, people have discovered many ancient ships where the goods are still well in shape.
Good. So you have some minor intelligibility issues, but other than that, I can understand what you're saying. Your connection of ideas are clear. So you have a pretty coherent speech there. Give me a minute, Gary. Be right there. And so overall, you have an organized response. Some minor intelligibility issues with some of the longer multisyllabic words. So be careful about those. But overall, I think you're doing a pretty good job with your speaking. Your estimated score here, I'm going to put you at 24 to 26 points. You have some minor problems with intelligibility. This is TPO number 34, question 3. So this case we have reading, listening, speaking, academic. So let's see how you did on this one.
According to the reading passage, the familiarity principle is a tendency for people to like things they are familiar with,
Okay.
which can be spontaneous.
All right.
To further illustrate this point, the professor uses an example of an experiment with two steps. In the first step, researchers showed students some geometrical shapes for a short period of time in a dark area. Students could not
I think you want to say geometric shapes.
see them very clearly this time. Then, in the second period, researchers showed those figures again to students, but this time they were shown in pairs.
Okay.
One is what the students have already seen, but another was a totally new one. Then they asked students which figure they preferred, and in most scenarios, students would choose the one that they have already seen, even if they are unaware with
Okay, you got tie this back to that definition you gave
the
in
fact
the
that
beginning.
they have already seen that figure before. So this experiment demonstrates the familiarity principle.
You could still, with it, as you talk about the experiment and the examples, try to at that point try to tie it back to the familiarity principle. So that's what integrated speaking is all about, right? It's not just at the beginning and at the end of your response, but as you get into that listening passage, kind of show explicitly how it ties back to that definition already mentioned. You might say something like the example, it connects back or it ties back to the familiarity principle since the professor is blah, 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 and maybe do something like that. But overall, this is a good response, right? Your delivery, you had maybe just some minor problems in there, but overall, I think you have a nice organization, good control of your grammar and your vocabulary. So I'm going to put you at about 25 to 27 points on this practice test. And I'm actually giving you comments on a third practice test today. So you say, here's my practice for an independent speaking question. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Private cars should not be allowed in the city centers of large cities. You forgot to put the S on there. Private cars. So do you agree or disagree with that? You say, by the way, I've registered for an exam on October 9th. I hope I can get a good grade this time. I feel good. I feel good about it. I think you've made a lot of improvements. You're speaking with much clearer, better delivery right now. You got fluidity of expression. Your grammar vocabulary is really both basic and advanced. It's appropriate based on the speaking prompts that you're doing. And you have a nice organization of ideas. So I think you're going in the right direction. Okay, RB, let's listen to this one. I have the independent speaking rubrics right
Matter of
here.
fact, it's a good way to ease the traffic burden. I agree that private cars should not be allowed in the city centers. As a matter of fact, it's a good way to ease the traffic burden in those big cities. For example, I have lived in
I would say not allowing these types of cars, blah, blah, blah. Show a little bit more advanced grammar instead of using the word it.
Beijing for 5 years, where the traffic jams happened every day, until at some point the government published a new rule saying that those private cars should not enter some specific areas. Plus, the advanced public transportation
Maybe plus, I wouldn't say. That's a little too informal. You might say in addition or furthermore.
system can be a very good alternative way for people to travel in the city. For example, I can take a metro to anywhere in the Beijing, which is as convenient as taking
I would say anywhere in the, if you say anywhere in the, you can't just say Beijing. You have to say in the Beijing area. Or I would say anywhere in Beijing. So you don't need a definite article in front of a proper noun like that.
a car.
But that, what I'm saying, it doesn't work all that. What about the United States, Michael? It's true, but typically cities and states and provinces and things, we usually don't put the definite article. But I say usually, right? Because English grammar is pretty crazy. And if anybody YouTube, if you guys want to share any exceptions to the rule I just explained, you can post them below this video, no problem.
So that's why I'm a big fan for this statement.
Okay, so I liked the example. You gave the example of Beijing to illustrate your idea. So I think that was good. It's very specific, it was extended, and you spent most of your speaking response explaining that idea, right? So that gives you really, when we look at here, I don't know, it says it is generally well developed and coherent. Relationship between ideas are clear. So this is pretty good here. I think probably your speech is more in the 3 area. Your topic development is probably more in the 4 area. And I think that your grammar is probably the way that you did it. It's between 3 and 4 there. So I'm going to put you at about 25 to 27 points on this practice test. So what can we say now? Based on the 3 responses, it looks like your TOEFL score right now is between 25 and 26 points. That would be a good estimation based on those 3 practice tests.